So before we get started, couple announcements. So the first one is, Megan, maybe you can help me on the date for Dave's event. I think it's the first Thursday. I think it's May 6th, at 12 p.m. Eastern. So Megan will drop the link in the chat. We'll also have it in the show notes. If you want to sign up for that, me and Dave Gerhardt are going live on that date, and we'll be doing it as a recurring pillar every month. And then maybe at some point I can convince Dave to trek down from Burlington, Vermont to Boston, and we'll do it live sometime. So we'll see, but stay tuned for that. Another announcement, we're hiring at Refine Labs. We're looking for a director of demand gen, performance marketing manager, graphic designer, copywriter. And so if any of those jobs seem interesting to you, I would encourage you to reach out to Megan or I on LinkedIn, or apply for the job that's posted, or just get in touch with us. So you guys all got an inside scoop here at DGL, but also for all the podcast listeners, if you want to pave the way on what we're doing in demand gen and helping a lot of like really successful companies do that, a lot of cool stuff going on here. So I would encourage you to reach out and check it out. Okay. So getting into the agenda, I am going to start on the second point here. None of the people listening to the podcast afterwards will be able to see the agenda, but that's fine. It is about adjusting your expectations on time to impact, time to measurement when you are creating demand versus doing lead gen. This is something that people cannot wrap their heads around, because they go and they're like, okay, I get it, Chris. We're going to go and create some demand. And then they think, and then they measure it with the metrics and the time windows that you would doing an ebook download to cold calling. And they're like, oh, it's been 2 weeks. Where are all the buyers knocking on our door? And it just doesn't work like that. And so when you are creating demand, what you are actually doing is you are moving buyers through a buying cycle at scale on their own without a sales touch in the way that they want, right? And so the buyer's in control of you know what I mean? We can do stuff. Over time, more people are going to be doing it. We see that in enough companies to know. But the beginning window, like you're going from collecting email addresses to trying to drive demand. And it's going to take a while for somebody that's cold targeted, that might have never heard of your company, that definitely doesn't recognize the problem that you solve right now. It's going to take a lot of time for that person to understand the problem, to decide and prioritize that they want to solve it, to get all of their team on board, to make sure that they have budget, and then to consider whether or not they buy something from you. And so we need to think about it in a different time scale, or the program will be set up to fail inside of companies, whether you're running the way that we execute on paid, AKA just guaranteed content distribution targeted at exactly who we want to give the content to. A lot of people, it's interesting. I got a post queued up. I was actually going to post it today, but I'll drop it here because I didn't have time. What every B2B marketer thinks when they hear LinkedIn ads is lead gen. And what I think is guaranteed content distribution. And if you can change your mind around that, you have a way different look about what you would do inside of that channel, knowing that, hey, I'm trying to target this, our, strategic account number, top tier account that we're going after. And I'm going to think about how to message to that account every single day, because I'm delivering content. I'm not trying to collect someone's email address. We can go and get their email address through anything and cold call them if we want to. Right. And so you can change your entire strategy when you think about it that way. And so just adjusting the expectations of the timeline gives you a lot of space. You need to clear the deck with that on executives before you try this, or you're going to get pressure at month one, because the leading metrics that they expect in a lead gen model are not is not happening. And so I'll kind of like maybe move to a question here, but I think that this is something that we're still like figuring out. I believe at the moment right now, if you execute our strategy, then you see the impact on sales qualified opportunities within 4 to 6 months. That's what we're seeing in terms of like with a lot of different companies. That's around the timeline that we're seeing. And so if you go in there and your executive thinks I'm waiting for a 30% lift in our leads in month 1, you might get it. Some companies do, but a lot of companies don't. So something to think about there, in just setting the right expectations at the executive level, and then building a plan about how to get there and what things you're going to track so that you can present to your team about about the success that we're having while we get there. Right. And so certain things that I look at is I figure out what is the most important segment for this company. Every company, pretty much every company, it's enterprise, hint, hint. And I'm going to look at their segment and I'm just going to track the impact of SQOs on that, or SQLs or demo requests or something early. And you can just present like, hey, I know that our demo requests only went up 10%, but the 10% there was all of your target accounts as 10,000 employees and above that you want to talk to. So maybe we should think about that. Anyway, it's something that I don't talk about enough. And I think it's something that people should really consider, because it takes time for people to understand what you do and decide to buy stuff.
So I think my friend David would appreciate this question. I want to go deeper on this topic. I think what you're describing is a symptom of a larger issue that's like plaguing B2B marketing teams today. You've talked before about how it's your mindset and this and that. And so like, what are the constraints? What are the things people are holding on to? What are they comfortable with? Like, why can't people break out of this? Everyone on this call will nod their head and say, you make total sense, but then they're going to go back to their companies and run into obstacles and pushback. And so like, if you had to dig deeper, like what is the core that's really causing this to be acceptable at the majority of companies today?
So I would attribute this to short-term mindset. I think a lot of companies think about marketing in a time window that's sales related. And if you really look deeply at companies that are doing well, the impact of marketing is the trajectory if you do it well. And the trajectory of marketing when you do it well is going to go way faster than scaling your sales team. It's just the truth. Look at companies like Gong. Look at Drift, right? Like they didn't win going 100% outbound sales. They won on brand. That's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're doing right now. And so the trajectory is what company, like I would rather, what you want your marketing team to do is you need to deliver results, but you're looking for the spark that nothing else in your company can create, but marketing and brand. And so that's one thing, is just like a short-term focus. It's an obsession with measuring stuff at the executive level, leading metrics that make you feel nice, but don't actually usually map to what you're doing. And so people are looking in week 2, where is the pipeline? What are we looking at in Google Analytics? How many clicks did we get? Blah, 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 blah. Right. And so it's very company centric as opposed to buyer centric in terms of just the way that they look at this part. And I think lastly is purely based on the mindset. I said this to somebody today, like a CMO sends me a message about something. They were running the ebook play, and then she was like, our ebooks are doing great. I don't like what you're saying, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually she changed. And so whatever happened, like it's been a year since that happened. And then 6 months ago or whatever, she started basically running our playbook. And then I get a message from her like last week that said, hey, we started changing this stuff and we've seen a 30% increase in our pipeline and we've just gotten started. And so like, those are some interesting things, but it's like, when I do marketing, I play in an infinite game. I think it's sort of stereotypical, but I look at it of perhaps, some people would look and be like, why didn't that CMO hire us to do it? And I'm more interested in that CMO doing what I say, and then going and telling 10 other CMOs, and then those CMOs doing it, and then a lot of people hiring me in 5 years. Like, we're going to continue to be in business in 5 years. I don't need to close everyone today. And so I think there's a part of marketing where the team is not looking at it in that way. It's very like, how do I get this right now? Blah, blah, blah. And so they're not generous with the information. It's very conversion based. It's heavily transactional. There's selfish, salesy, selfish marketing content. And so I think those are some of those are some of the roots here.
I think I would add too, and I think you've touched on this before, around like complacency. I think things work just
100.
well enough to keep people comfortable and to continue to do the same thing, and socially acceptable, because
this is true across any function in any business, right? It's not only in marketing. It is a business principle that you build something, and then your job is just to continue to make the machine run, as opposed to disrupting yourself, because disrupting yourself requires change, and change is hard. And especially as your company gets bigger, it becomes a lot harder. And so, I mean, it's part like in other industries, it's like nobody gets fired for doing this, like buying this, company that's reputable or whatever. And in a lot of cases in marketing, no one gets fired for doing the safe stuff. It's sad, because actually it's the opposite. More often than not, you would get fired for doing things that are innovative and smart. And so that is, something that's real. There's just a lot of like vanilla conformity in the market right now. And it's interesting to watch the ones that don't conform, typically the ones that people look up to.
Those are the ones that will win, and it's going to take a while for everyone else to start losing. Well,
and it's not about losing, by the way. Like, if I want to be very clear on this, like, if you want to keep running your demand waterfall as a Series D company, you can keep doing it. You're going to be fine. Your sales team's going to get a majority of the revenue. You're going to raise enough money. And most likely at this point, there's enough maturity in the category and a maturity of your company and brand that you're going to exit. This is not about, if you don't do this stuff, you're going to go out of business. You're just going to grow slower. You're just not going to, another company is going to come and eat your market share slowly. At some point, eventually, maybe someone will crush you, but it's, you know what I mean? It's more so that there's like an opportunity over here, and you would just rather stay safe over here. I think that's what it's like. And I just think that more people should be reaching for the opportunity, but companies don't help their marketing team do that. Some do.
That little back and forth inspired a good amount of questions. So let's keep going and bring a few people on.
Let's
David,
do it.
I want you to ask your brand recognition question. Hold on, I'm trying to find you. Can you come on? Hold on.
Get this guy on here.
I know, I'm trying. Hold on. Sorry. My bad, David. Oops. All right. Mission control.
Okay.
You're on.
Hello, I have become unmuted. Okay.
Whoa, look at that hat.
You like the hat?
Stylish, yeah.
Excellent. So I was asking, are you offering to clients or suggesting perhaps that they measure their brand recognition before they start with you? As it seems as if the greater the brand recognition they might have, the faster this approach would pay back for them, perhaps. And if you had enough kind of data from different customers where you discovered X amount of brand recognition with company A and Z amount of brand recognition with company B, you might be able to develop a bit of a prognostic as to, okay, you're at 10% recognition within your market, or you're at 35% or 50% before we start, as a way of predicting, well, here's how long it might take for this to start to come back. If you're starting at 0, we've got a bit more of a hill to climb than if we're starting at a higher number. It's just a thought. What's because you're building it right now as a byproduct for this other purpose.
It is really fascinating because I had a conversation with a company that's going to kick off with us soon about this today. And it's really funny. I was like, how did you know this? And they wanted to do one prior to starting, and then another one in 6 months to look at the lift, because that's part of how their marketing team is going to be measured in new markets. And so that was an interesting one. We haven't had a company specifically do one at the beginning, but we have had companies that do one after somewhere between 3 and 6 months of working together. And you get the survey data, you get the data of the recognition of the brand, but you also get the recognition relative to other companies. You get the association with either words or products or categories. And then most importantly, you get, where did they hear about you? And that is the most interesting one, because social media gets off the chart ratings. So
it used to be that when you advertise in certain publications, back in the day when you advertised in publications, they would offer you free, recognition studies once a year or twice a year. And that was something I would regularly do. And it was very interesting and obviously important to me with the advertising I'm doing to see a rise in the recognition. So yeah, it just seems as if it makes logical sense to build that in, whether it's you're doing it or their PR firm that they may have that might have something running already currently.
So when you think about the estimate of like how much it would move for a company, I look at it more so, it's less about brand awareness and more so about product market fit, market acceptance, traction type of look, right? And so I'm more focused on, if you look, we did an episode on with Mark Robert, so it'll go up soon. He looks at it about product market fit. And once you're beyond product market fit, which is that you can get customers that hit a certain leading metric to retention, that hit a number. And then you move into go-to-market fit, which is focused on unit economics, that we get really focused with companies that are in go-to-market fit, right? Or even growth and moat, following his model, one of those two. But the model it works better when the market has already accepted your product and you have a repeatable process and you know who you're selling to. And so that's the challenge with earlier stage companies pre-product market fit, is that, and the way that he defines product market fit is a lot different than how other people do. I think people that don't know should go and check that out. It's super smart. The problem with companies that are pre-product market fit is that they don't understand exactly who they're selling to. They don't have a repeatable sales process. They don't understand the messaging necessarily. And so it's hard to do a demand strategy and and guarantee results when the company has no idea. And so
yes, if they don't know who to target, then it's going to be much harder for them to have much success.
And the brand awareness one is it's interesting. It's interesting to look at the delta. It's interesting to think, okay, if this company had this level of brand awareness, would the strategy work better? And to be honest, I don't have a clear hypothesis either way.
Well, one thing that you're doing is you're targeting very tightly. So general brand awareness is one thing, and not to be confused with the kind of more targeted awareness that you're trying to drive. So many PR firms or general advertising kinds of agencies will look at overall awareness, perhaps not quite as tightly as you're able to think about it. So just as I would forecast that becomes an issue when your awareness with your ICP is much tighter than they're able to measure. Anyway, thank you. I was just kind of curious.
Fascinating question. And it was really interesting that we had just talked about this earlier today.
This happens with us more than once.
Thanks, David. Good to see you.
We have a bunch of great questions that were from that last thing. So
Let's
I want
roll.
to cycle through them.
Oh, yeah.
Natalie, I'm going to bring you on next. You had a question about how to deal with clients. Maybe this is something you're dealing with day to day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You are speaking directly to me, I feel like, today. because I'm literally dealing with that, or I've had clients that it's like 2 weeks and they're like, where are my leads? And I'm like, you have to be patient with me. Come on, like help me out, you know?
Mhm.
And so how do you deal with this? Like, what strategies do you use when you have an antsy client like this that's just like, I don't like, are they willing to wait it out with me? You know, I
Yeah.
have some ideas, but I'd be curious to hear how you guys handle it.
The real answer is setting the expectations before they become a customer and telling them the truth. And so the truth is we're out here creating demand and we're doing something that a lot of other people aren't doing right now. Therefore, we get to set the benchmarks for how long it takes and what gets measured. This is how we're going to measure it. This is how long it's going to take. If you need something to happen in the first month, then go and hire somebody else and be comfortable losing those deals. And we're at a place right now where we can do that. And so, because it's honestly more of a headache to go and try and babysit a customer that's looking for results on this type of strategy in 2 months, then I would just rather not have them be a customer. You know what I mean? Looking at philosophical alignment or alignment to our strategy is one of the number one criteria we use to understand whether or not a customer would be a good fit with us. And that's honestly probably the number one I mean, there's a lot of firmographics, there's a lot of stuff about ACVs and different stuff like that. But if the leadership team's not aligned with what we're trying to do, then it's not something that we're going to work on probably. But there's ways to kind of like, if you get in I'm trying to help you because you're in that situation. The real answer is to set the expectations. But if you're in that situation, then I look for metrics that matter to them, that indicate that the strategy is working. And the reason that I'm able to do that is because I know that they're not looking for them. They have one single dashboard that they look at that's looking at the metrics that they think that they should be looking at. And I go in there and I find the real ones. Like I mentioned, our enterprise, you know, I get that our demo requests have been flat since we started, but our enterprise demo requests are up by 250%. And that's the segment that you care about that has the most qualified pipeline. And we're way ahead of our target there. And it's only been 2 months. Or, you know, if you segment it out by company size or qualified buyers or different things like that, you can find that like, yeah, I get that you had 100 demo requests coming in, but 70% of them were unqualified and your SDR didn't even touch them. And now 85% of the people that fill out a demo request are qualified. And therefore we're getting, you know, I get that the number went down from 100 to 85, but we're actually getting 50% more qualified demo requests. And so there's ways to slice and look at the data to present the story of why it's working. And sometimes you just need to look for that because every company responds differently. It can be more enterprise. It can be better conversion rates from demo to SQL to SQO. It can be just more qualified, more number of total qualified buyers that don't get disqualified by an SDR on the way in. It could be, you know what I mean? There's plenty of places to look in the data. And so that's what I would do to build confidence.
I'll go ahead and add a couple things, Natalie, just from like a client management perspective. I think try to ask questions when they come to you with, where are my leads? Where are my leads? Like, you know, where is this coming from? Are you getting some pressure? What's going on internally where this question is coming up? Try to like understand what's going on, because oftentimes they're getting asked questions or they're getting put under pressure and they think the solution is delivering more leads, right? So take the time to try to ask questions and really kind of understand where they're at. Sometimes something will come up in the conversation that is can be solved in a different way that is not actually about like what they're asking for. So that's a tactic that I use as well. Another is like, if it really is going to take 3 more months and they're expecting like better news in a week from now, you want to avoid this like deadly cycle of them asking the same question every week or every 2 weeks to you. And so try to have like a reset conversation with them. And this is a good opportunity to bring in like your boss or someone else, and they can play bad cop to your good cop a little bit and just be like, hey, like, it sounds like we're misaligned. Let's have a conversation to reset on what's realistic. You know, if there is an immediate need and they really need these, you know, like, okay, we could do some lead gen to get leads, but they're probably not going to convert to sales. And like, you know, those are options you can throw out and be really clear about it. So just from like there's certainly some psychology when it comes to client management and managing expectations. So those are some of the things that you'll want to consider as well, on top of like everything that Chris said is spot on.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that should never happen when you make this change is that late stage funnel metrics that are marketing sourced should not go down, right? Leads go down by 90%, SQOs stay the same or go up. The reason is that the 90% of leads that went down don't convert because they're on a lead gen model with no buying intent and don't happen. And so I actually prefer, we work with both, but I prefer to go into a company that's been wasting $100,000 a month on lead gen, because it's very clear to show them, I get that you want more leads, but look what happened with all these leads that you did over the past 12 months. Zero. Nothing happened with them. And so our leads went down by 90%. Our SQOs are up by 30%. I think that it's month 2. I think we're on a good track here. What do you think? And so you can try, I don't know if your type of industry does that type of stuff, but you could pull data of what they did before, and just the core is that people need to understand that leads is not the metric. It's an indicator, and using that as the right indicator with a variety of metrics is the important way to look at it.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Natalie.
Good question.
For that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Another thing that people need to think about is that, like, whether it's paid or organic or anything, you don't just flip it on and stuff works. And that's not how it goes, right? There's so much testing that goes into figuring it out. And I think that we do it faster than anybody else. And it still takes us, 2, 3, 4 months to do. And so like, it just doesn't work like that. It's not only about buying the ad. It's not only about getting something in front of somebody. It's like the fascinating thing is when you're at like $100 million companies, like some of the companies don't know exactly why their customers buy the product, and therefore don't exactly know how to message it to a new buyer because they don't understand that buyer that well. And so you can't just drop in one message, the best tool out there, put an ad in front of people and expect that a bunch of people are going to respond to that, unless you're going to push people into a form and then just collect leads to hit metrics. Those people are not going to close. And so it takes time to get this stuff to work, just like anything takes time. Building a sales team takes time. Figuring out how to change your SDR process to increase the connect rate from 1% to 2% or whatever you're trying to do takes time. Trying to put a new feature in your product takes months. And so like, it's weird that people have clear expectations of what's realistic in other functions in terms of timeline and never apply it to marketing.
Or customer success.
It's really fascinating.
For that. I have some more great questions. You ready for the next one?
Of course.
Orly, going to bring you on. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Okay.
Hey, great to see you.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Doing great.
So, all right. I have a failure of understanding here because I've watched this a couple of times. I listened to your podcast and I'm trying to kind of connect the dots. Mm-hmm. And here's where I kind of lose your message because, you advocate for a lot of things. And I get that, part of it is like starting the podcast or some sort of, being out on LinkedIn. Another part is, trying to attract leads by, and not necessarily expecting that they'll go to sales, but just kind of trying to nurture them with content. Mm-hmm. And so kind of the idea is, let's start with this one piece that sounds pretty doable, creating ads that'll, that people want to download. That sounds interesting, and that you can get their emails and then you can kind of like continue to nurture them. Where kind of, maybe I'm a little bit slow, but can you just like spell out what that process is? Because you get those emails, right? You start nurturing them and mm-hmm. you start nurturing them and you send them content. Is the expectation like at some point they'll either unsubscribe or raise their hand? Mm-hmm. Or is it the expectation that you're doing that part along with everything else? I mean, I just am trying to paint the
Yeah,
picture in
yeah.
my mind and I'm not getting a clear color.
Totally. Let's clarify. So what you just described in like running an ad, getting an email and running them through marketing automation until they most likely unsubscribe is the thing that I'm advocating not to do. And so that's what most companies do right now. So they'll run an ad, they'll collect an email address, and then they'll either run them through marketing automation until they unsubscribe or
So
hit
I'm
an
not saying
MQL score.
automation necessarily. I'm saying, you perhaps put them in your email database and then you let them know when you're having another webinar, when you're, here's a new blog that we published. I'm not talking about, right, the kind of waterfall effect where you put them through 5 emails and then either they've subscribed or, they go to the farm.
So where's the disconnect here? Because like,
right. So it's like trying to understand, what is the mindset that you have, right? You're getting these names off of LinkedIn because
I'm not doing that actually.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to get someone to give me their email address. I don't need it. I have a core targeting list in LinkedIn that says I'm going to go after CMOs at companies that are 200 to 2,000 employees that fit into this industry. And then I'm going to distribute content to them that's delivered inside of the feed that doesn't require them to click off and go to my landing page or give me their email or do anything. I'm going to put a video in front of them. I'm going to put a picture with words in front of them. I'm not going to do a slide deck that explains something that I think they might want to know. And I'm going to allow them to do that. And the reason that I do it in the feed is because more people consume things in the feed than somewhere else. And so I'm able to get a message across that actually gets consumed, as opposed to having someone fill out a form to download the ebook, knowing that they're on a mobile device and they're going to fill out the form and they're not actually even going to read the ebook ever. And we've just paid $50 for an email address that didn't do anything. And so that's the difference. I'm not looking to collect that information like most people do.
Yeah. So then when do you start, like, I mean, you're marketing to them obviously on LinkedIn, but there's still a part where, traditional marketing would say, okay, you want them to be able to learn about events going on at your company. You want them to know about webinars. You can't just rely on LinkedIn as the way in which they're going to see all your content.
So we would run a ad to that target. If that was the target, say, we got a webinar for CMOs coming up next Thursday. You want to register? And then they could register. And so it's like, you can use LinkedIn to do all of the things that you could do with email, but you get the entire market as opposed to just the people that are in your email list. And then people actually consume the stuff in LinkedIn. And a lot of people don't consume what's in their inbox. And so when I'm selling expensive software, I would rather have the scale and the consumption for the small cost difference. And there's waste in marketing budgets everywhere. So I don't even need to create new budget. I just need to go and show them something that's not working and just do this instead. And that's the way that I do it. And at some point, somebody might convert on something, but I'm going ungated so I can give them all of the information that they can on their own with no expectation. And if I do marketing well, at some point, they're going to recognize that they have a problem in their business that I can solve. And they're going to come to us and they're going to not look at another vendor and they're going to buy very quickly. And our sales team is going to be happy. And so that's the way that I look at marketing. It's especially in social, it's completely not conversion based. I do my conversion in channels that people are trying to convert on. And so like Google ads would be a different story. In Google ads, somebody's saying, I'm looking to buy this software. And I don't recommend doing this, but you could. I don't recommend saying, webinar for CMOs about ABM. You could buy that Google ad. I think
that would be kind of a stupid ad to buy.
I think it's challenging, and it's pretty much.
So you're saying that the conversion channel for you in your mindset is like converting based on, people are going to see you on LinkedIn or for whatever you produce there, and based on that interaction, that's how they're going to know about Refine Labs, and then they'll go to the website and say, "Hey, I want a demo," or "I want to talk to sales."
That's the paid strategy, right? And so the paid strategy is doing that. I'm trying to hit. You can go broad, target entire market. You can go industry segmented. You can segment however you want with ads and guarantee delivery to those people. In parallel, the company should be driving an organic strategy that commands attention, right? And so there you have your events, you have your LinkedIn organic content, you have a podcast, you have guests on the podcast, you're building a community over there. And then the people that see the ads become aware of you, and at some point are more aware and then can get into the community, right? And so there's almost two strategies happening in parallel. The challenge for companies is that the organic strategy is difficult to make work. They don't have the patience. A lot of them don't put the right talent on the project. They don't put the right budget. They don't think about the right time. They don't measure it the right way. So the organic thing never takes off. So you need to use paid a lot in order to generate results. In an ideal setting, you pay for attention until you can command it organically, and then you don't need to pay for it anymore if you don't want to. But most companies don't command it organically. And so therefore, in order to keep growing and to have scale and grow faster, you're going to want to pay for it. Otherwise, you're going to be building a podcast that nobody wants to listen to.
Okay, so last question, and I realize I'm taking up the time.
All good.
I'll shut up after this. Yeah, so all right, one thing that you don't speak to, and maybe it's because you don't think it's important, is this idea of, kind of blog writing, SEO. Is that to be assumed? Like, what is your philosophy on that? Is it that it should be a small part, that in your business it doesn't work, like your organic should be on video, or your podcast, like your podcasting takes the place of blogs? What's your thoughts on that?
So we personally have spent zero time working on SEO and have grown rather quickly, right? And so I don't think that a company needs SEO in order to be successful today. That's a start. Do I think that a lot of companies are going to do it anyway? Yes. And so the way I've been getting more thoughtful about how I describe this, and I just break it into companies have what I call table stakes. The things that everybody does that are mature channels that are flooded, and you're never going to get massive growth trajectory out of them. And so a lot of the things like Google ads, SEO, email marketing, like some of those things. And then there's this whole set of stuff that you could go out and create demand with: podcast, events, LinkedIn, paid social, building a community, a lot of, influencer marketing, all these things that companies don't do. And so what I'm trying to tell people is, like, if you want to do the table stake stuff, you can do it. But there's all this stuff over here that works way better right now that you could be doing, and you're choosing to do SEO instead. And so it's like, if you have the resources to do it all, then do it all. But most companies don't have all the resources to do it all. And so if you don't have all the resources to do it all, make choices about what the things are going to be most effective for your business today. I get that SEO worked really well in 2009. But if you're starting your company right now and you're at 1 million ARR and SEO is your primary strategy, you're destined to lose. And so that's the way that I think about it.
All right. Thanks.
So yeah, just to close out on that one, like a lot of the things I talk about, I think people, I need to clarify on some of this stuff, because it's not that you shouldn't do them. It's just that you should consider that there are other things that, if done well, will definitely work better. Good to see you. That was a fun conversation. Thanks.
All right.
All right. So the world famous Nelson is up next. Now, Nelson, you asked a question in the chat. You submitted a question in advance. I will allow 2 questions. You can decide which one you want to start with.
All right. Well, let's start with the one that's kind of on topic. And I was wondering I was wondering, what will it take for the model to change? Because I think a lot of people are picking up what you're putting down, obviously. Like, if my LinkedIn feed tells me anything, now it's salespeople too, which is great. And so, yeah, what has to happen? Because there are companies, like you said, like Drift, and I think maybe you mentioned Gong, that have sort of run a similar model, and there's a lot of marketers like yourselves that are talking about this. Mm-hmm. So what is that kind of catalyst?
It's the common curve of adoption of innovation. You know what I mean? And we're in the pre-early adopter or early adopter phase right now. And that's just the way it works. And so in anything that gets changed, like when the first iPhone came out, I didn't own it. You know what I mean? I think the first iPhone I owned was iPhone 4. And so there's a lot of people right now where they could get the iPhone 2 and they're going to continue to use their BlackBerry. And it's about decide like which person do you want to be? Do you want to be the person when it's the iPhone 7 and you're still using a flip phone? Or do you want to be someone that's on the iPhone platform? Or you know what I mean? I'm trying to make an analogy that makes sense, but that's where we are. And so people will continue to watch from the sidelines while they use their BlackBerry and see the people that are out there with the iPhone 3 doing way cooler stuff with all these apps. And eventually more people will move into the adoption phase. And then they'll have to go out and learn how to use an iPhone that doesn't have a keyboard, right? And that might be hard for some people. And then they're like, oh, I actually want to go back to my keyboard, and they will go back to their BlackBerry. And I bet a lot of people are doing something like that in the demand gen model right now. And I just think that over time, you'll see more people win. Like I get enough messages to know that there are a lot of people out there that are implementing this stuff and having dramatically more success than they were before, which makes me happy. It's great. So people are moving, but at a mass scale, it's gonna take I would say it's gonna take at least 3 years, but probably closer to 7.
Gotcha. And then the second question is a bit off topic. So I understand if you want to maybe save this one for later, but I was wondering if you have any advice.
Weird. Actually, it's weird. I want to drop something else in there. It's weird because when if we get to 3 or 7 years later and companies then decide, okay, now it's time to start my podcast, we'll most likely be doing other things. You know what I mean? And so the companies that are in the innovation are like at least 2, but potentially several more steps ahead of other people. And it's weird if you think about your company and if you are ahead and over time, how much that can compound in terms of results. Like our compounding results over time based on how much farther ahead we are of other people is going to be very fun to watch. And I think a lot of companies should think about that too, in terms of marketing innovation and what I talked about before, how much it could move the needle if you hit, you know what I mean? It might not be on your podcast, but you're building internal skills and capabilities about how to think about things so that maybe the platform that comes in, or maybe that LinkedIn launches a Clubhouse comp and you have the best podcast thing that goes on the LinkedIn audio platform. And you only were successful on the LinkedIn audio platform because you started a podcast 2 years ago and the podcast didn't generate any results, but you generated IP, you generated talent, you generated process that you then use in the future. And a lot of companies don't think like that.
I would add, Nelson, too, I think that there are external factors that will influence like a broader change, like everything that just happened with the pandemic. Like you could argue that pretty much everything in our lives have changed. And as who knows how things are going to happen, but like over the next 10 years, there's a lot of people predicting that like the roaring 20s will have like another crazy decade, right? Because people have been pent up in their house. So I think that there's a potential. I think we're about to enter a really interesting time where there are going to be people that make choices to see the future, adapt what they're doing, make changes, and capitalize on the opportunity that's being presented today. And then there are going to be a lot of people that just are completely blinded to it and are just going to keep chugging along with everything that they're doing now. And so I think that those external forces and circumstances, I think have a potential to kind of accelerate where we're going. And I think the people that are thinking about innovation in the right way today are going to be well positioned to even accelerate that even further.
And I hope this doesn't count as my second question, Megan, but it's more of a
1B. It's question 1B.
Yeah. But to what extent does, if you think about the saying, follow the money, but to what extent does venture capital, like what influence do they have in this sort of model? And do you think if they kind of came around to it, are they coming around to it that, the CEOs would dance to that tune?
So it's interesting because I build relationships with people that work at venture capital firms, and smart ones are already making these adjustments. And so I'm going to misquote it, but in Rand Fishkin's book, he talks very deeply about choosing the right partner at a VC level. And so I interact with smart ones that have typically, the ones that I'm saying are smart, have typically operated a company within the last decade and have adapted and do consulting and understand those types of things. And so they're moving forward, which is the same thing in anything, right? In any type of set of people, there's going to be people that are ahead and there's going to be people that are behind. And so there is a ton of money in cloud right now. It makes sense. Like there's a lot of massive fundraising rounds going in for a lot of company right now. The companies actually have the power, not the VCs, because there's too much VC money and not enough companies to take it. And so like that's it. It's interesting to think about, but I don't put this. I think it's Mark Roberge and I talked about this, so I'd encourage you to check that out when I think it'll be published on Sunday. And we sort of like came to the conclusion that it's a joint challenge. The founder is going to come in and they're going to make unrealistic projections about their business in order to maximize the valuation so they keep the most equity. And then the VC is going to say, that sounds great, here's the money, but now you actually have to go and deliver on it. And then the founder didn't really think about how they're going to move their Series A company from 5 million to 18 million over the next 2 years. And then they just have $8 million in the bank and they got a time window and they just start moving. And a lot of companies get ruined that way. But I don't think that there's a core, like, I think it's a shared responsibility on both sides.
Gotcha. Thank you. And so second and final question, and I understand if you maybe want to take this one another time because it's slightly, it's off topic. But maybe there's some people in the audience who identify with this or who listen in. I think a lot of salespeople also are starting to tune in. So I've been in sales and I'm looking to actually break into demand gen, which I find it really fascinating. And I was wondering if you have any advice on how to do that, like what to look for, and particularly how to find a DG leader that shares your philosophy.
Couple strategies. So the first, there's many, I'll give you a couple. The first path that I would look at is whether or not you'd be able to go in and get a manager level job as a demand gen manager. You might be able to just straight away and you should just go apply for jobs and try it, right? Like I've interviewed those people. Some people that have that job are not very good at their job. You might be better than them. I'm just calling it how I see it. And so that's one option. Another option that I like is starting and I'm not going to go through this in whole detail because I've talked about it a lot, but you could start your own B2C company and cut your teeth doing that. You might actually find that you don't need to go and work for a company. You can just run demand gen on your own product and make way more money. A third one that I think can work for some people and it definitely wouldn't work for others is finding a company that you really believe in and offering to do work for free. So you can continue on your job and then maybe you can help them experiment with Facebook ads for a couple hours a day, or you work on their stuff for a full day on Saturday for free or something in order to get exposure to what it's like in that company and make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. And so those are, we still do occasionally when I'm interested in it, we still do free work for that reason, mainly to learn. And so I take my own advice on this one. We want to figure something out. A customer is not willing to pay for it, or I want to remove all of the friction so that they say yes, so that we can do it, so that we can learn. I make it as easy as possible for them to say yes.
I have maybe an out of the box idea. Given that you're in sales, you might want to look for SDR positions where the SDR team rolls up into the head of marketing.
Ooh,
I
look
think
at this
that
org strategist over here. I love this.
I think that role is going to transform quite a bit. You could very easily get an SDR position. And if you're interviewing with the marketing leads, you can express that your desire is to get into demand gen and you're willing to kind of start there. You can be a successful SDR and you want to help them like figure out what that evolution is. And so.
Whoa. That was
Throwing it
great
out
advice,
there.
Megan. That's awesome. Thank you.
Don't act so surprised, Chris.
This was great.
Cheers, thank you guys. And I was also
Yeah.
wondering, is there a way to like suss out if you are speaking to demand gen folks, like if they're like the lead gen crew or like
Just watch what
the
they
awesome
do.
crew?
You can go into
Yeah.
their LinkedIn page and look at their ads. You can go into their Google, you can use SEMrush for free and go in and look at what they're buying on Google ads. And then you can just ask them in the interview, how do you measure marketing? And then you might have to ask a couple levels deeper. How would my role be measured? Like those are typically, you can tease that out in a pretty easy fashion. Now, the easiest way is just to look what they're doing. Are people in their company posting on LinkedIn right now? Do they have a podcast? Do they create strong video content that's on their website? Do they have an event strategy that looks fun and exciting and valuable? How do they run paid media? So those are the places that I would look.
That's awesome. Thank you guys.
Nelson, DM Ariana. She says she knows of a company that's hiring now, or the
Ooh,
SDR team rolls up into marketing.
People getting jobs left and right over here.
For that. All right, Jordan, I said I would bring you on. Let's see, you're still here. You asked a question earlier on that was great. I'm going to bring you on to Ask Live. And then Thomas and Elaine, you're up next.
Whoa.
This is a lively Q&A.
I love it.
Loving it.
Love
yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great questions as well, Nelson. Just one spin off that, Megan, was there's also agencies and media companies that are looking for sales and BD guys. So sometimes wrapping into, a good ad firm or a good agency that's looking for someone that's on the accounts or management side can give you another way to segue in there.
That's a great one.
What's up, Jordan? Last time we talked on the phone, but now I get to talk to you here. It's great. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I had a question about, so I'll set the stage, paint the picture, and then would love your perspective. So it's the age-old sort of story around, outsourcing versus insourcing, or insourcing versus outsourcing, and sort of making our own tech stack versus leveraging an agency. So in my position, I'm sort of the VP of sales and marketing, did a bunch of years in sales, a bunch of years in marketing. Here I am now. And we've got these new up and coming digital marketers, demand gens that we talk about all the time on the show. And so historically, just because I've been in organizations where we have like 120 app tech stack and just no one uses it and it's just a nightmare. I've generally tried to keep my MarTech pretty lean and then outsource, like create my marketing team is about content, creative, graphic design, really design the strategy, and then leveraging agencies as much as possible. And so we've got this new demand gen marketer who wants to bring it all in and automate it and do it internally. And it's been a few years since I was sort of tactically involved in like building my own tech stack. So I was just wondering what your perspective is. I know tons probably changed in 2 years. HubSpot used to be the thing, but now it's sort of, my perspective, does a lot of things okay, rather than breaking that apart and going with this different strategy.
You mentioned agency there with tech stack, and I'm not really sure I understand the question. Are you looking to have an agency do the work in the tech stack or own the stack?
Yeah, own it. So generally we have two agencies, one that helped on the infrastructure, websites, potentially help out in creative, and really on the infrastructure side. And then on the media buy, so actually do the media buy, execute on your strategy, and build your LinkedIn campaign, and do your media buy and sort of execute on all your tactics that you want to do. Theory is that, and they also own the analytics and the data. So they have their own tech stack, do all the reporting analytics, handle that all for you, able to hand it off. My thought is it's, Costco, you're getting sort of wholesale pricing, they mark it up. But if I were to do it myself internally, might have a bit more control, but I'm not as much invested on maybe the stack itself.
I don't think that it's one or the other. Like, I believe that you need to own your stack and your data, because if that relationship ever goes bad and that company's got all of your data, you're in a tough place. So you need to own your CRM, your marketing automation, anything else that's involved in there. You need to own your ad accounts. I go into companies there where their agency owned their LinkedIn ads account, and then they decide to leave the agency and they lose all of the data for 2 years of what they were doing. Can you believe that? So you need to own that stuff. And then you can have your partner work inside of those systems with you. And so that is the blanket for sure recommendation of what to do, because you need to own, that's like core business IP. You need to own that. But hiring an agency to build the ads inside of your platform and run the ad analytics inside of your platform, or make an integration into LinkedIn ads in order to run their analytics software, just like they would on their own platform. All those things are in play. You might want to do some data and security stuff, but like we do that, you know what I mean? Like, so that's definitely something that could be done. And to look at the question more broadly outside of tech, like, I think that there are functions that would be better served in-house for a company and then outsourced. And I think this will evolve. I'm interested in just kind of like pontificating about what it might change to in the future. But I believe the number one thing that companies need to build around internally is deep customer understanding and relationships inside of their marketing department, which actually don't get built that much as I would expect. So those people need to understand customers deeply. They need to have the relationships. They need to know how to message to them. They need, when they put on an event, they know that the people are going to love the event, right? Like, that's what you need on your marketing team. And then you can basically move out all of the rest: ads, innovation, like frameworks. You could have someone else run the ops, right? Like, and then over time, as either the company grows or as this model matures, I would expect that companies try and take more in-house. I'd see that trend happening, especially in EMEA. I think that will move into the US, where companies will try and use less agencies because marketing is a competitive advantage. And so having those things built inside of your company is important. And then the thing that gets outsourced is innovation, because companies do not innovate. It's very challenging inside for that to happen. And so they are going to find like experiment data, tests, benchmarks, frameworks, things like that have already happened, and they will acquire that and then do something that someone else has already done. But none of those things work if you do not understand your customer deeply. And so that's the number one. If I was in charge of any marketing team, that would be the number one KPI.
Perfect. Thank you.
Got a follow up? Are you good?
I got maybe a sidebar conversation
Yeah.
on personal accounts on LinkedIn versus corporate.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a little A/B testing. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, like personal accounts just get more traction, more views, assuming to a degree. And so for yourself, you leverage obviously your own personal account to distribute a lot of content. Now, is that, and I think you've talked about executive sponsors or making sure you have someone with a personal account that's owning some of the content. What about some of the branded personal accounts? Whether it's like, like the Marky Millennial has, more of a branded personal account that's separate from, his agency. And I know you've been in his podcast, a little bit of a different tactic there to create a personal account to infiltrate some of the micro social groups. And wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I'm pretty sure that violates the policies on LinkedIn. Having a branded social account that doesn't match to an actual human, I believe to be against the policy. But if they're not getting flagged for it, that's a cheat code for people. But just be careful, because if you're successful on that and then you get 75,000 followers and then LinkedIn comes in and says, you violated the code, we're going to shut this account down, start over from zero, you're going to be really sad. And so I think in general, building on top of a personal profile first is the smartest strategy. And then over time, if you've noticed, like, I don't know if you've noticed, our company LinkedIn page is now like moving up to 10,000 followers, gets a lot of engagement. People like it. We're using it more as an experimentation place on new different content types, a lot more, just more learning. And what we're trying to do over there, and I do believe that we'll get there, is to have the best company content, the best company page content production on LinkedIn. And there's only a couple of that I can think about that might be doing it better than us right now. And so we're doing that over there, because all it takes is for LinkedIn to just change the algorithm a little bit for when company pages become way more important, that we have all of the operational infrastructure. We know how to do it. We're still using that information. We're still using the content that gets distributed there in other ways, but we're learning how to do it the best out of everyone. I don't recommend that for every single person. We're doing that for strategic reasons. But you could most likely get away with just one or two or more personal profiles. And once one or two or more are successful, you could scale that out across other people in your company if you wanted to. I like the idea of doing both, but if you had to choose one, it's personal for sure.
Fair enough. Good points. You're on a roll. So I got one last one, strategic, and then you can sort of move on.
Okay.
I've seen a big push recently, and this is more on like corporate communications on, sustainability, ESG reporting, and it's been sort of thrown onto a lot of marketing people's desks on, how to interpret some of this data, how to turn some of these reports into a little bit of a marketing play. But then there's also, you go too far and there's, the greenwashing effect. And so really trying to have some of these authentic content marketing around what companies are doing to be a little bit more sustainable or make these commitments, whether it was Netflix and Shopify that just came out with these, huge, net zero commitments by 2023 or 2025. So it was just interesting on your thoughts and on some of this recent trends that I'm seeing in that type of marketing.
Let's talk about it as how it relates to marketing first. Okay. And so I just want to get this out there. There should be some type of rule for the companies that are sending junk in direct mail to a ton of people that goes directly in the trash and is not sustainable at all and is creating a bunch of garbage for no reason. And I think that they should be required to offset the carbon footprint that's created by sending, hats that people throw in the trash or a mug with your logo on it that nobody wants. And I think that people would be more thoughtful about their direct mail because I receive it all. And that's exactly what I do. I look at it and I throw it in the trash. That if they had to do something like plant 5 trees when somebody did that, they might think differently about their direct mail strategy. Okay, now that I've got that out there, let's talk about the corporate communications around that. I think that this is, I think that communicating these types of things is important. I believe that it's a lot more important for much larger companies, like the companies that I see doing things like this and spending a bunch of money on LinkedIn ads to promote that they're doing good things, are like Chevron or Goldman Sachs or different things like that. And then LinkedIn ad reps come and talk to our 10 million ARR customer and tell them to do what Goldman Sachs is doing in their ads for their 10 million ARR SaaS company. And I'm like, I just don't understand what the connection point is here, right? And so I think it varies by the stage of business. Do I believe in doing it? Yes. Do I believe in communicating the good things that a company is doing? Yeah, I do. And so I just think it's at the moment it seems to fit larger for large enterprise companies that create a lot of waste or footprint, or I don't even know the terminology for it. Not sure if that was a standout answer, but that was a tough question, my man.
Sorry, you knocked the first couple out of the park, so I'll take it. I'll take a first run base. Really appreciate the time, Chris.
Appreciate you. Great to see you, Jordan. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Jordan. I have 2 comments before we bring on Thomas to ask his question. So first, shout out to Angelica Taylor for managing the Refine Labs company page. Good work.
Oh yeah, crushing it out there. I see content on that page, and I'm like, give me that content. I want a slide deck on my stuff.
For that, everyone loves the slide decks. So the chat's on fire about them. So I had to get the shout out in, and then. Before we go to the next question, you brought up a really good point that I feel like you could expand on even further. And that was why companies can't innovate internally. And so my question to you is, what are the constraints or the inherent limitations that exist that impede innovation at the company level?
I think we went through this recently.
For that. We can move on. I felt like you just touched on it, and I think it's such an interesting topic.
Yeah, I think 2 episodes ago we were talking about metrics and budget, and our CEO doesn't believe in Facebook, and I'm too scared to run TikTok ads to sell my SaaS. And oh wait, I have all of these other responsibilities to make our machine run, and so I have this whole job over here. How am I going to give enough attention and budget and focus to figuring this new thing out when I'm not incentivized to do it? And most likely the metrics set inside of that company will ensure that it fails. And so that's the reason. I think it's pretty straightforward. And at the moment, the innovation gets injected through, it's been interesting. I've been thinking a lot recently, and this would be interesting for people, especially ones that work at bigger companies, to think about what happens. And so I'm looking at this like a little like cannon, okay? And so there's something that's outside of your company, and information gets shot in a cannon and it lands in your company. And it's coming from all different directions. And somebody in that company receives information, it spreads and becomes a strategy. And that is what happens inside of companies. And then the thing is to think about, where is the information coming from? It could be coming from a smart CMO group. It could be coming from Gartner. Could be coming from a ABM vendor that is telling you how to do ABM. It could be from somebody on LinkedIn that is not actually doing the job that you're doing. It could be from your buddy, right? So the information's coming in and somehow it's becoming a strategy inside of a company. And what I'm thinking about right now is the amount of misinformation that's moving into a company that's directing strategy that's being adopted. And companies never think about that. And so it would be really interesting over time to think about if there was a source of information that was coming in that you trusted, that had already worked on a bunch of other companies that are like yours. You have all the details for what to do, that maybe that would be a better path. But yeah, I like the little analogy because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. It happens on a human level and a company level. Just information's coming into your brain, and then you decide whether or not you want to receive it, and then what you want to do with it.
I knew I'd get something good out of you with that question.
That was cool. You like the cannon analogy?
Yeah, I'm digging it. All right, Thomas, I'm bringing you on. You asked your question a little while ago. I hope you remember it.
I think I do remember it. Thank you for having me on.
What's
I've been
happening?
listening to the podcast for a while. First time on the live session. First time asking a question.
Welcome on. Yeah.
So like one of the main things that my mind has changed on since listening to this is that, pure lead gen isn't really the way to go. And you were describing a situation that my company is in right now, which is basically we're relying 100% on lead gen, and we're not really doing any top of the funnel content. And it's like a lot of money on LinkedIn. So, and we're reporting on MQLs to all the C staff, and that's like a metric that we use to display how well we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
What's a lot of money? It's 6 figures per month.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just answering the question in the chat. So obviously listening to your stuff, I want to make the switch into like nurturing and, higher funnel stuff like awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is going to be communicating that strategy shift to all the higher ups.
Totally.
My manager is like on board with this. He's the one who showed me your podcasts, but it's still going to be tough. Like we're going to get questions from everyone. Like Sdrs are going to be like, where are all the leads?
This is why companies don't change it, because it's
hard
really
to do.
hard to change. Yes.
I'm scared
There's a lot of infrastructure. How many SDRs do you have?
Right. How many SDRs? We have about a dozen, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So
we're hiring more because we're ramping up our LinkedIn, and we're getting more useless leads. I don't think they're useless because some of them close, but like it's creating this loop that is just like, okay, we're spending more. Now we need to hire more SDRs. Oh, look, we have more SDRs. Now we need more leads. So now we need to spend more.
Mm-hmm. How much does your product cost?
It can go into the 7 figures, big deals.
On average.
Deal size is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but
okay. Yeah. For the sake of it, let's just assume it's 100K, everyone. So
sure.
So let's just assume that it's 100K. And so you got your your manager, your boss on board, have you taken the time to run? I think we talked about it in the last episode. We can link to it for you about exactly how to quantify whether or not the strategy is working. Because that is the key. Like, you need to use your data to go in and say, we got all these leads on LinkedIn. If you're spending 6 figures a month, you spend more than $1.2 million in a year. And you can look back over a year and say, we spent this much money and we got this many customers, which generated this much revenue. And then you can see whether or not the strategy is working, calculated in customer acquisition cost payback period. And that's going to just give you your advertising customer acquisition cost, right? So you're just looking at the ad spend. And then after that, you could go and include marketing headcount that's responsible for the program, and then includes SDR headcount and sales commissions. And you would get total or blended CAC for that program. And you'd have a sense about whether or not it was good or not based on what your company needs. And so I've gone into companies that are running the strategy and done that analysis, and it takes them 48 months of MRR to pay back the cost of the ad spend to acquire the customer. And a lot of those companies may not even have an LTV of 4 years. And so they're acquiring a customer, then it's costing them more money than they're going to get out of the customer for the entire lifetime. And so, but in order to get executives on board, you need to elevate to this level of like business conversation. And you might find, you mentioned you close a couple deals, and let's say they're 100K, like we're going through in the thing, like it might not be as bad as you think. And then after the key, like after that, once like if we did the same example on Google ads, right? We're not just going to stop spending that 75, when a company said spending $75,000 on Google ads, we're not just going to stop spending that. We're just going to stop spending all the money that's being wasted. And so when we go to Google ads, we typically cut it from 75 to 15K a month. And then we just get $60,000 more to go and do the strategy that we want on a different channel, because the money was being clearly wasted. And so maybe you can find the same thing on LinkedIn. But in general, the change is hard because you already mentioned it to people. It has a downstream effect on SDRs, which is why most companies don't change the strategy. And so the alternatives that we present to people, and some could, depending on you're spending that much money on LinkedIn, you probably have a decent sized company, and heard the SDRs. Like a lot of companies are having success giving their SDRs 6 cents instead. 6 cents in a contact database and doing that, and forgetting the ebook stuff. And then you take $100,000 to give your SDRs that tool. And you take all the marketing money that you save and you do good marketing. And then those SDRs get its signals of intent based on the marketing that they can go and do outbound on, and do way more better outbound than somebody that downloaded the ebook. But again, that's a fundamental go-to-market change. But the first step, I'll just try and break it down and summarize for you. First step, quantify whether or not it's working. That'll give you clear insights and it'll build credibility. And then based on what you find, if it's more than a 24-month CAC payback period on the advertising side, you know that it's really bad. If it's more than 12 months, then you have to start looking about maybe there's some things in here that are working and a lot of stuff that's not. Maybe it's a certain audience, maybe it's a certain content piece, something like that. And then try and figure out how much money we could move, and then move that in a different way. And perhaps the right strategy is to phase it out. Cutting it off completely it's gonna really make a change. And so phasing it out is probably the right strategy. And another possible one that you could do is you can have that stuff going on LinkedIn, and you're trying to get high intent leads on your website. And then the way that you slow down the lead gen flow is based on how much better performance over time the demo form is providing in terms of sales qualified opportunities relative to the ebooks. Get it? So you set your metrics with the executives up front. We're going to be able to, when our website demo form is replacing all of the SQOs that this amount of money is spending right now to create with our SDRs, then we're going to make the change. And that can just build a little bit more confidence. But in general, there's no clear cut answer to this, and it will be challenging. But I see you're a pretty young guy. Careers get made by doing cool shit like this. So maybe it's something you want to tackle.
Yeah, definitely fun. But really appreciate the answer.
Awesome. Great to see you.
Thanks, Thomas.
Come back in a couple weeks and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear about it.
Elaine, you were having some questions about LinkedIn. Bringing you on next. It's good to see you. Unmuting you. Guys, I swear I can do this. Why not? All right, Katie, let me try you. You're my backup because it's not letting me bring.
Hit me.
All right, Katie, ask your question. Elaine, I'm going to try you again after this.
All right. So this is completely different tack to what we've been talking about.
It's good to switch it up.
Yeah. Basically, my question is about hiring. A lot of the time now, pretty much all of like the jobs that I've applied for recently, jobs that friends have applied for recently, all in like the marketing and like demand gen realm, all seem to require like 5 rounds of interviews, a test assignment, like a lot of hurdles to jump through. And I guess I'm trying to understand the value of that on both sides, because that's a lot of time spent. Like if there's more than one candidate, that's a lot of time spent on the company that's hiring and also the candidate who maybe has another job. So I wanted to get your read and to like understand like what do you do at Refine Labs? How many rounds do you do? Do you do a test assignment? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What role? Marketing? So what seniority?
Like high level specialist or manager.
Okay. And at what size companies?
I mean, I'm seeing this in everything, like everything from small business to I'm in B2C SEO. I had the same thing, but I also like in agency or in-house, I'm seeing it at startups. I'm seeing it at like big, huge companies everywhere.
Sounds like a lot of time. Right. And it sounds like a lot of time. And usually when you have 5 rounds of interviews, my guess is that either there's just too many people involved in the decision or you don't really know how to judge somebody's skills. I think those are the two I can distill. There's definitely more, but those are the first 2 that come to mind. I mean, I think that 4 is extreme. We do 3.
Like that sounds reasonable. To like
3 is right.
Right.
2 is not enough. In my experience, and each of the parts of the process is for a different reason. And so perhaps companies have built their own process and every company can do whatever they want, right? But like it's a lot of human capital on the company side to hire someone to do that at a manager level.
Right.
And then it leads to the fact that how many people go through that process before you hire someone.
Exactly. Right.
And so, there's a lot of wasted effort there. I will say at the moment right now that the candidate has the advantage. If you're in certain,
it doesn't feel that way. I'll tell you that much.
if you're in certain specialties, I'll give you another example because like it wasn't too long ago. Funny to think about, but it really wasn't too long ago where I was applying to jobs and interviewing. And thinking about the way to get a job today might be a lot different than what you're doing to get the job. And so thinking about your strategy might be an interesting way to look at it.
I definitely varied it up this time around. I started a new job last week, which is great. And I definitely changed my strategy this time to the last time that I was looking for a job. But I think you kind of end up in the same pipeline. Like even if like recruiters or people in the company are reaching out to you saying, hey, we want you for this job, they'll still put you into the same pipeline that's 5 interviews. And I'm like,
yeah, I know, but
like
and those companies will lose long term, right? Because if there is a really strong person, then another company will take that person and they'll move faster.
Yeah.
It's just the truth, which is why they end up with, less than ideal talent inside of their company because they're slow. And so that's a game of natural selection in my view. And so like we find somebody that we want, we move as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And that's respect for the candidate's time. It's respect for the candidate's skills. It's respect for our time. And we're trying to win here. And so there's an advantage to be had there, and we're going to use it.
Yeah. And Jess has raised a good point in the chat saying they want to be super sure. And like, that's like where all the brands come from. But I think where my question is coming from is like, how more sure are you after the 5th interview than you were after the 3rd? Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're not sure by 3, then it's probably not a fit.
Mm-hmm.
Side question related to that, sub question was, when you do 3 rounds, who do you have them meet? Like presumably their direct manager and maybe a recruiter, but like what way do you set up so that they're getting a good impression?
We don't use a recruiter. The process is different depending on the role that we're hiring for. For our director level role, the first interview is with me.
Nice.
And so we do the first interview with me. The second one is with who would be the direct manager, going through a working session. And the last one is a project presentation with a group of executives. And so
Nice.
that's our process. And then if they're at different roles, it'll be a different process, because the process is ideally built to vet the talent required to do that specific job, not a
Right.
blanket interview process for everyone in marketing.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that we do it. It's been working really well for us, mainly because we know what we're looking for and we know how to judge whether or not someone can do what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I would add, I think an important component of this is creating an opportunity for the candidate to evaluate the company and the role just as much as you're evaluating the candidate. Like whenever someone comes to interview here, I always ask them questions of like, what do you want in a place of work? What are you looking for in a role? What are your questions for me? We don't want to have you do this presentation round because we want to have you do work. We want to experience what the job is going to be like so that you can decide if you want to do this job. And so I think a lot of people design similarly, like companies design the buying experience that's best for the company. They design a recruiting experience that's convenient for the company, thinking about putting yourself in the candidate's shoes. Because interviewing is a two-way street, right? It's a mutual decision, not just the company decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think test assignments can be like, I personally have like opted out of a hiring round because of doing the test assignment and being like, I hate this. So it's definitely useful. It's just when it's that on top of 5 interviews, you're like, oh my God, like, yeah.
Totally.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Good to see you.
Elaine, take 2. Come on, Elaine.
Let's do this.
We can do this.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, we got you in here.
Okay. Chris, you know, I've been a fan since last March, probably.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
But I've learned so much. I had to literally like just sit and try to understand everything that was going on for the first 3 months. I didn't get it, but I continue to get such great value. And I found you, I don't know how you got into my feed. I found you because you were doing audiograms at the time, and I was studying, you know, what are podcasters doing?
Right at a time during a pandemic, because we hadn't figured out the video yet. Yep.
Oh yeah. Then all of a sudden you're here with a ring light and everything. So, but my question has to do with just watching how you grew your podcast on organic LinkedIn. It was like phenomenal. And I know, you know, you provide great value and you don't gate it. You let everybody come and you're able to generate business and leads from that. But I wondered if you did ever, you know, prospect or look for leads outside of your network. And if you did, like maybe everybody here got a DM from you except me, but what does that first DM from Chris Walker look like? Or how do you get in?
I've never done that.
So how do you?
It's just not part of the strategy. Like what we're offering is a innovative, differentiated way to think about demand gen that is expensive and it's challenging and requires organizational change. It requires multiple executives to be on board. there are too many things where if you go outbound, we're going to lose every time. Right. And so it's not the strategy. It is educating people along the way. And then they opt in when they decide. Right. And so it's part, if you're selling disruptive products or new categories or things where the people don't know what to do, where there's not a good comparison to it, the thing that we're doing is a good strategy. It's a good strategy for everyone, but in general, but that's what we did. And the reason that the LinkedIn channel grew so much initially is because when I saw the spark that I needed, I did it every day for more than a year. Right. And so a lot of people were not there at the beginning, and I got a bunch of learnings, and a lot of people that would have seen it would have been like, okay, like it worked well. I'll post once, continue to post once a day, blah, blah, blah. I posted every single Saturday and Sunday for a year. And Saturday and Sunday at that time was the best time to post because nobody else posted and everybody was on there, and my content flew off the shelf, millions of views every single weekend. And nobody else knew what to do because they were like, oh, LinkedIn's it's a platform that you only post on weekdays. And so I just found like because I was committed to it and because I was experimenting and doing things that other people weren't doing, and it wasn't just listening to advice that people gave, I was going to go and figure it out for myself. I found a lot of things that other people didn't do, which led us into video and different things like that. And now I believe the core reason that my content continues to be successful is because I do everything so that nobody ever needs to leave the feed. It's the number one mistake that people make on LinkedIn today, that are more sophisticated or mature in their content journey, is that they post content or they post a summary of a podcast and then link someone to a podcast. Like somebody's going to scroll through the feed and be like, okay, now I'm going to go and listen to this 45-minute podcast that John was telling me about. And nobody does that. And so telling the story in the feed where it actually gets consumed, knowing that very few people actually click out and listen to the podcast in that action, is the way that I've adapted because I know how people use the platform. And so those are some of the nuances there. But like, I send people cold messages to be on our podcast because I like their content. Send people, I cold message Gaetano to do an interview in Miami before we had even met each other before. And we did that interview and then we did Demand Gen Live. And so I've done things to like network with people, but not with the intention of selling them something. And oddly enough, like when you don't have the intention of selling something and you actually feel that way, because I know a lot of people pretend that they don't, like they're doing something nice for somebody, but they actually want to sell something. Like when I message somebody and I'm asking them to do a podcast, it's just because I like their perspective and I want them to be on the podcast, not because they'll be on the podcast and then buy something from me later.
Wow. So just based on the strength of your content, you're able to grow your network.
Well, and I'll just add, Chris, I think you have like sent out just LinkedIn connection requests to marketers or people in
marketing, CMOs, directors of demand gen, people like that. I had a very smart connection strategy early on that was essentially building a network.
Yeah.
I've never used notes. Another tip for people, like and I'm sure people will feel this way too. Like if you're going to send a canned note that inserts someone's first name in their company or something that looks generic, you might as well have no note because the canned note works less. I'm more likely to ignore your connection request when there is a canned, unpersonalized note, as opposed to if there was just no note. And so that's a tip for people. That's happened to me for years. And I still see people automate spam connection requests with an automated message. And so I know most people that are listening to this podcast, and I definitely know the people on the Zoom aren't doing that, but that's for somebody that stumbles upon it.
I think the takeaway, Elaine, is you want to send organic connection requests to people that you want to see your content, right? And the purpose of it is they're connected to you so that when you do post, they're able to see it and consume it, right? But you're not connecting with them to pitch them, right? You're just connecting with them to connect.
Is that what you were asking about?
Well, that too. I just wondered if there was anything that you don't pitch into the trash if you got it in your DM, what that would look like.
What do you mean?
Well, if somebody were to DM you with a product that they thought you might be able to use at Refine Labs, what kind of an approach would you read and not throw away? Like what if any, or do you just?
I believe that there's only been one time that somebody's got me to use their software through a LinkedIn DM. And they, I don't even remember exactly what the message is, but they ended up giving me the software for free for 6 months, $100,000 plus a year software for free for 6 months. And now we use it on 20 accounts.
Wow.
And so like, I don't understand why people don't consider that to people, what, not even only in marketing, for people that are influential in finance, for people that are influential in the front end development, for people that are influential in medical technology, about giving people that have influence over a large scale of buying decisions the product for free, so that they use it and they know the good and the bad things about it, so that they can tell other people, and then those other people buy it. I've probably driven that software company at least 3 million ARR in shout outs and talks and referrals and different stuff like that. But it could be a lot higher than that. And they think it's coming from SEO.
Wow. Thank you.
Thanks,
Good to see you.
Elaine,
Good question.
for that. All right, Omar's up next. Bringing you on.
Right. Can you guys hear me? Chris, can you hear me?
What's up? Great to see you, Omar.
Good
Got
to
the
see
hand
you.
raised. Now you're on here.
I know. I'm being official about it. Well, good to be here as always. Let me close my door because my family's making noise. Yeah, so I have a question. Well, short story, because I think, Chris, you'd appreciate this, and this kind of sets up my question. So earlier this week, like many of us do, I got a email from my CEO about a customer is doing a conference, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's talk to them. You know, I'm not super bullish on conferences, but I think they have their place when you need to use them. Speak to the customer and this conference organizer, and they're like, you know, we're putting together this big summit, and we've been doing this for a while. We usually get thousands of physicians who sign up for this. I'm like, oh, great. Okay, well, what's the cost? And it's like, well, for $10,000. And then at that point, you know, I kind of like my eyes glazed over. So their thing is like, you know, it's $10,000. You'll get a speaking spot. So your CEO or someone from your company will get interviewed at the summit, and then you're guaranteed 1,000 leads. Right? We've all heard this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So assuming, let's just say those are 1,000 leads, they're all in my, in my ideal customer profile. Still have to nurture them, still have to like reach out to them and do like the old way of marketing. And I thought, well, why don't I just do my own conference? So
that's the answer.
Yeah. So my question to you, and I feel like it's a kind of a simple question, but I think your insight would be very interesting to hear. If you have two choices, and let's just say that I'm going to make up a name. This thing is called let's just call it growth in medicine. Well, let's just say that's the brand.
Mm-hmm.
You have one or two choices. Choice number one, you do a 2-day digital summit, like the Growth in Medicine Summit, and you do it for 2 days, and you have, let's just say, 20 speakers, different physicians and everything that have their emails. Option two is you do the growth in medicine, let's say, series, and you do same thing, like webinar format, but you do this over the span of, let's say, 6 months, same 20 speakers, same everything. The only difference is that do you do it all within 2 days as a summit, or you do it over 6 months as a series? So that's kind of my question to you, and I wanted you to sort of like unpack that for us.
Yeah. So first off, to go back to the original thing, if there was a in-person conference where there was going to be 200 people of your target buyer in a room, and it was $10,000 to get an interview with your CEO or your medical director for 30 minutes in front of all those people, I would pay $10,000 for that, as long as there was a video.
Totally agree.
Forget the leads. I don't care about that stuff. But if that thing is recorded and we're putting our subject matter expert in a position at an established conference with an audience to do that, and perhaps we get the Q&A, I would definitely pay $10,000 for that. If it was a booth at a virtual conference, then it would definitely not do that. So that's just a little caveat for people. But I think the speaking spot at a conference is a huge draw. And then over time, and you already went there, is that you want to have those spots, but you want to be building your own spot over time. Mm-hmm. Right. And so while all the other vendors are continue to sponsor that booth, you are building something else. And then over time, you're siphoning attention, because if you really execute this well, the content that you present and the way that you present it is better than the conference, especially in certain industries. And so, what was the original question about the two? Okay, so
Yeah.
And so on the two, my gut reaction going to it is, why can't you do both?
I agree. I want to do both. I'm just kind of curious, if you had to pick one or the other, why would you pick?
I personally would go for the ongoing. And the reason would be that it gets me into a cadence of producing content consistently as an organization. And so I have a cadence of recording, post-production, distribution, you know, and then you can build on that and continuously make it better, as opposed to doing one conference and then releasing all of the content on your website that nobody sees, or, you know what I mean? Like, and then 2 weeks later, you don't have anything to talk about because you just do one conference a year. And so I think companies need to figure out how to do this on an ongoing basis. And that's, and at large organizations, it can be a challenge, and they use the user conference or the other thing once a year instead.
Got it. Yeah, and I completely agree to do both, because the cost to do both isn't that big of a difference. Just one follow-up to what you said earlier. Curious, because I think we're all trying to gauge this. Completely agree with you, where if it's a conference with 2, 3, 4, 500 people and it's $10,000 to get my CEO on stage at a set, like, that's worth every penny. The part where I don't know how to gauge this, is that for a conference like this, it's $10,000. They say you get 1,000 leads, but they do say that you will have your own like session, right? With the host of the conference. And let's just say they are correct in saying that they are able to successfully, because they've done this many times, et cetera, they can get 5, 6, 7,000 physicians, because we're focused on physicians, signed up for this. My concern is kind of like, we would pay $10,000. I don't know how to get, like, how many of them are actually going to watch that, and how many of them are going to, possibly. That's the part where it's really hard. I think if it was like $5K or less, it's an easier decision. But when it's $10K, which I feel like a lot of these conferences are justifying this cost, because they're like, oh, we can get thousands of people to sign up, and then they sort of slip in, like, here's the number of leads you're guaranteed.
Is it virtual or physical?
Oh no, this is 100% virtual.
Yeah. So at 10K virtual, I would do it myself.
That's
yeah.
What's the price that you would pay for, where you'd say, okay, this is reasonable. This conference is going to have a lot more people get registered. What number do you think that would make it worth it?
It depends on how much.
That's a super generic question.
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't pay anything for it, because I just know that you can get something better done on your own. But for a company, like $1,000, like not a ton of money. And then over time, just figuring out how to command, like, it's interesting when over time as a company, if you start to command the attention of the buyer, how much control you have in an industry. Where the conferences right now are squeezing you, especially in the medical device industry and manufacturing and a lot of old school industries, where the conferences squeeze you and the prices go up every time, and you get less, and you get less results every year. And that's the only thing that you can do, because you haven't spent the time to command the attention of the audience more so than the conference. You've been living off of paying for attention, and over time you need to figure out how to command it. And so that's the theoretical answer.
I totally agree. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Great to see you, man. Love your questions.
Thanks, Omar. Well, our good friend Bob is at a creative crossroads, and he needs your help, Chris.
Okay.
Hi, Chris and Megan.
Bob knows creative's the secret weapon.
Trying. So, I've ran around 50 ads at this point over the course of the 6 months or so I've been doing this. And I've been cycling through some of the best performing ads, like I'll revisit. So basically
just did that for a customer this morning. So interested to talk through it.
Okay. So I'm curious, and what I've basically done following your strategy, like deconstruct the sales process in the form of messaging that start from high level pain point, kind of like the hero's journey storytelling, pain point, what we can solve, and just kind of like a series of messages like that, focusing more on the copy, like you said, I think has definitely made a big difference. Also placement of the target at the bottom next to the learn more button, like using a different call to action, a different title there, header, has worked well too. But like the actual content, like I'm creating the videos from diagnostic images. I do that for kind of like the message delivery of what we do or how we do it. And I've been using some case studies recently that really brought in record number of demo requests. Had a really good week last week using a new case study. So I was really happy with that. But then again, and so I'm using like little cartoons to go with the, I've been creating these cartoons to go with, the case studies to kind of as like a pattern disrupt, like it's my customer doing on screen, like what they said. I made a silly cartoon of someone doing something. So I've been doing that. But my question to you is, I'm really kind of at a creative impasse here where, I don't even like, there's no new diagnostic videos I can make. I don't have any images to do anything different. So how frequently would you go back and rerun the play? Like, is 3 months enough time? Is 2 months enough time where they haven't seen that video in 2 months? So it's okay then to recycle it. Like, do you have any experience or guidance you can give there?
The answer I'm going to give you. It's just test it, right? Like I think that somewhere in the 3 to 6 month range is good. I've definitely done it at 12 months and rerun it. And if it's still a relevant piece of content, then it can work again, knowing that a lot of people didn't even see it the first time or didn't click on it or didn't engage or, change jobs. And now it's a lot more relevant than before, or something in their situation changed and now it's a lot more relevant. So it catches their attention. And so if you're in situations where I do it sometimes where like a campaign is late and we're spending $200,000 a month and I got to make up for a week, which is 50 grand. And so I got to slot something else in from the past. And so I go and look and I find something that worked, that didn't have a very high frequency, that had a good results. Perhaps we've switched our targeting since I did that the last time, and then I'll rerun it with new targeting or whatever else has changed. And that can be sometimes it works great.
So you mentioned frequency. In terms of like the ads, I've done what you've said in terms of like, terminate the ad after it hits like 2 frequency on each ad. But in terms of total frequency for all campaigns, it's sitting somewhere like 250,000 users at like a frequency of 10 overall since I've started doing this. So the average user has gotten 10 impressions basically.
Yep.
What are your thoughts then in terms of like total impressions on your account before like you really have to switch stuff up? Is it even something to think about, or do you not think about that?
You're switching up the creative, right? And so the thing that they would see is the brand, the logo, but the creative would look different every time. And the creative is where the fatigue happens.
Well, that's the basis of the original question, right? Which is, when can you reuse that creative so you don't get that fatigue? And it's been hit or miss, by the way. I have tested it. Sometimes I've had great, I've had the same exact response rates on the ad the first time around. And then sometimes something I reused, like it didn't perform well at all. And so it's kind of interesting. It's hard to glean. And the other thing is I'm moving very slowly compared to, I know how fast you iterate. I'm doing something different each week, as opposed to running 30 different ads at one time. I just don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah. And so when a note on campaign frequency is I'll look at campaign frequency trailing 30 days, right? And so then you see in the last 30 days, on average, in the people that we're targeting, how many times, and then you're going to see somewhere, depending on what you're doing, you could see 2, you could see 20, but you have a sense, right? And then sometime I'm trying to end up somewhere between 6 and 12 usually. And so that's like on campaign frequency. What was the other question again?
That's okay. I'm probably totally set up totally wrong. So within how I do ads,
you can go back and rerun something that's already happened, and that's fine. And then it really is a game of creativity at this point, right? Like you've run a lot of the plays that we've run, which is great. You've learned a lot. Some things worked. And now you sort of like, it's a cool thing where there's not right now a playbook for you. So you get to go and innovate on something on your own, which is great. So that's what I would,
except I'm a science guy. I'm a science guy. I like to follow a playbook. So no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the
cool.
insight.
Good to see you, Bob. Glad things are going well.
Wow, this was a great one tonight.
We didn't even cover most of the agenda, which is fine with me.
Well, is there something on the agenda you want to wrap into a closing thought, perhaps?
So this one is not that important. So it's important enough for the people that are still here to stick around for another like 3 minutes, but we'll just stick it back here. Because it's the idea of when I say what a demo request really means, I want to just clarify for people what I mean, because I recognize that some people will hear, oh, we need to get more demo requests, and then buy Google ads. And instead of driving them to an ebook form, just drive them into a demo form landing page, or do the same thing on LinkedIn ads and just drive them straight to a demo form to get more demo requests. If taken directly, that's what people would do. That is not the advice. When I mean a demo request, I mean that somebody goes to your website on their own and asks for a demo. And so I'm never driving someone to that landing page, which means that someone needs to thoughtfully consider at least one page and then take the action to click the button and then convert, which goes against all conversion rate optimization best practices. And the reason that I do it that way is I would rather have the filter at the marketing level than the sales level. I would rather filter out bad fit people that don't want to buy than passing them to our sales team when there's 10 times as many and they need to sort through them, because the conversion rates, the good ones, will go down because of the distractions. And so that's what I'm looking for when on a demo request. If you look at the last touch, the referral source on a demo request, that will also give you insight. If a demo request that comes from a Google paid search ad versus organic or direct traffic, the win rates of those will be different. If it came through a LinkedIn ad, the win rate of that one will be different based on the referral source. Same thing for any different last touch attribution or referral source. It's a key insight because it gives you an idea of where someone was before they jumped off and asked for a demo. So somebody that's browsing LinkedIn that sees one of my LinkedIn posts out of the blue, clicks on my name, clicks on the logo, clicks visit website, clicks schedule a consultation on their mobile device without ever looking at anything or understanding what we do or looking at the pricing that we publish, is going to click and submit that form and be unqualified. And so, but you'd have the UTMs to go through and look at that. And if you have a high volume, you'd see a lot of patterns in that data, which would help you make decisions on the optimal path for someone to convert. Not a buyer journey, just the optimal path of where there's the highest intent flow for your buyers to come and ask for a demo. And so that's what I mean when I say demo requests. And we also use another filter on top, which is that they need to be ICP firmographically qualified. And so you set criteria at the beginning of what it is. Maybe it's a company, each company is going to have their own requirement. Maybe it's a company size requirement. Maybe it's a seniority level. Seniority level is an interesting one too, because there are a lot of manager level employees that drive buying decisions of enterprise SaaS. And a lot of companies say, oh, that's a manager, I don't want to talk to that person. And I know personally that a lot of managers have closed six-figure deals for us for coming to work with us. And I know that I know when I was a manager, I executed the transaction of a HubSpot enterprise subscription. And so there's something there. But anyway, that's why I just want to make sure we delivered on the promise. That's a demo request. Just don't force someone into a conversion if you want to have the high volume, the high intent leads. And the way to look at it is, are my conversion rates staying consistent from demo to SQL to SQO, or going up? When they start to go down, a lot of people are going to say, oh, our sales team isn't doing a very good job. And what they should really think about is where are the new demo requests that are coming into the mix coming from, and are they as good as the ones that were in there before? And it's typically a marketing issue, not a sales process issue when that stuff happens. And with that said, we will begin to close out. So David Gerhardt event coming up. If anyone wants to, try and work here, would love to chat about that. And for the people that stuck around, which is still 25 people, almost 2 hours into this episode, you all are crazy, and I like it. And so I hope you all have a great week, and look forward to seeing you again next week.
Have a good week, everyone. See you
Bye.
next Tuesday.